Good evening. I would like to call to order this Brunswick City Commission regular scheduled commission meeting for Wednesday, February 18, 2026. If we could all please stand for the invocation and pledge of allegiance. May we bow. Thank you, God, for giving us the time to come together to do the business for those who call the city of Brunswick home. Please bless us with your wisdom, your grace, and your mercy. In your son, Jesus' name, we do pray. Amen. With that, we will move on to the approval of the agenda and the adoption of the February 18th, 2026 regular scheduled meeting agenda. Is there any addendums or subtractions?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I would like to make an addendum to the agenda.
Yes, ma'am.
I move to defer under updates, item 7, municipal court to the March 18th, 2026 commissioner meeting.
Here in the first, do I hear a second? Here in the first and a second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye. Aye. All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes and the agenda is amended. Are there any addendums or subtractions? Hearing none, we will open it for motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the amended agenda.
Here in the first, do I hear a second?
Second.
Here in the first and a second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye. Aye. All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. With that, we will move on. Before I continue to move, I just want to make sure Commissioner Harris is on. I'm sorry, I should have done that. Yes, ma'am. Now that we are done, we will move on to public comment. Mr. DePonte. Without seeing him here, we will be sure to reach out to see if he wants to make time in the next commission meeting. I'm sorry. With that, we will move on to items to consider for approval. Number 2, consider approval of February 4th, 2026 regular scheduled meeting minutes. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the February 4th, 2026 regular scheduled meeting minutes.
Here in the first, do I hear a second?
Second.
Here in the first and a second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye. Aye. All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. With that, we'll move on to number 3, consider approval to declare police department vehicles surplus. Chief Smith. With the respect of the commission, if you all mind, is it okay to delay 3 and 4 until Chief Smith comes here and move to number 5, which is consider approval of Axion and Georgia Power contracts for installation of video, LPR, and lights? Or would you all like to wait? Whichever you all would like to do, I'm happy.
Continue with number 5, please, Mr. Mayor, if we can.
Okay. Is there a consensus on the agenda?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good deal. With that, we will move on to number 5. And Assistant City Manager Berquist, can you come up so we can consider approval of Axion and Georgia Power contracts for installation of video, LPR, and lights? I could be saying Axon wrong, so apologize if I am.
It's perfect.
What is?
Good evening, Mayor, Commission. It's always a pleasure to be able to stand up and speak in front of you. Right quick, can we make sure, Jonathan, can you hear us? We have an accent.
Yes, sir, I can. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Appreciate that. So we'll continue forward. So tonight's presentation regarding the Axon and Georgia Power contracts. We were approved for a public safety and community violence grant. Some feedback? A little better? Okay, that sounds better. Thank you. The grant totaled $978,000. That money was federal money, leftover ARPA money that was funneled down through the state, the American Rescue Plan Act, and that came through the OPB through the state of Georgia. That grant money was supposed to be used for technology that could be used to reduce violent crime. And as we move forward with this grant, our timeline is to have this grant operational by the end of October. Now, this grant came about through a rigorous RFP process through our city procurement. We had 9 vendors reply through the RFP process. 8 made the cut. There was 1 disqualification. Axon was chosen out of that 8 by a panel that was convened through city leadership, which included people like the city engineer, the IT director, procurement, and the city manager's office. If you will look in your packet, you have the Axon contract, and in that contract, it breaks down 2 sets of numbers. The first set is hardware and infrastructure for a total of $563,549.83. And the second part of that is a 3-year contract to operate that plan for $325,000 for a total of $888,549.83. So that package for the next 3 years will operate the Axon platform, or better, the Fusus platform. It's Fusus by Axon for the city with our public safety camera system. So how it works, there are 57 cameras, and those cameras are called outpost cameras, and they will cover 20 intersections throughout the city of Brunswick. You've got a list of those intersections in your packet. 14 of those intersections are GDOT intersections, and the remaining are city right-of-ways. We've recently had meetings with the commissioner of GDOT and other GDOT leadership, executive leadership, where we spoke about this project in detail, the intersections and the permitting process, to make sure that we can move through this process efficiently and have everything operational by our goal, the end of October. Each one of these cameras consists of 2 components. One is high definition video, live stream video. The second component is an LPR camera, or a license plate reader camera. So both functions come through 1 camera that'll be mounted at these intersections. All of the videos and the pictures that are taken therein will all be live streamed through the platform, not only to our 911 center in real time, every officer in their computer in their vehicles, as well as the police department. And accessing this information in real time gives us a much better response, but a much better coordination and communication through 911 and public safety, which makes our community safer. There is a component where we can integrate external cameras in through this system. So you have the 20 intersections that are going to be covered. There is a way to import or integrate external cameras through our system as well. And I'll give you an example. Maybe the cameras at our high school, maybe cameras at local businesses through our business district through downtown. Maybe any cameras that the housing authority might have. And so these cameras being integrated to this platform, again, allows our 911 center to have real-time information throughout our city to give our response, our public safety, just a better response, to have real-time information. God forbid there be an active shooter, a terrible wreck, or some, whatever call they may respond to. And so having that real-time information throughout the city is a big benefit. Now, data insecurity, I know there is some concern in communities where these cameras are. So, we need to be sensitive to that concern as we move through this project. And so one thing that's important to mention is, Axon has no access to any of this information. They can't see it. They can't copy it. They can't share it. they don't sell it. I think in this day and age, with the way information moves, a lot of information can be gathered by companies and then, sold or dispersed to other agencies or entities. And in this case, the ownership of all the video and the images that are collected will be the property of the city. And any disbursement of that information will come through the city. So Axon is not taking any of the pictures, any of the informations, the tags, the video, and giving them to any other agencies, their subsidiaries, or anyone else. So that's important to know, that data is ours and it's safe. There is state laws that govern how long we hold on to this and the things that we can do. It's covered under OCGA 50/1896. Sets a minimum standard of 180 days that we have to hold on to the data. 30 months if it's an accident, if it's in regards to a criminal investigation. And then from there, the information can be disposed of. Now, we can internally set other parameters if we so wish. But the important thing to note is there is an end life with this information. We're not just storing the information. If it's not used in a certain time, the information will be destroyed. And so we're not holding on. And I think that's important. And we talk about data privacy concerns. Another thing to understand is we're not tracking people with these cameras. We're not following people. We're not spying on people. We're not looking for people. There is a very narrow scope for this information, and that comes in the form of criminal investigations through our police department. So that's when, if we're looking for a stolen vehicle, if we need to examine a bad wreck, if there is a crime that we need to investigate, that's where the information, the pictures and the data will be used for. But outside of that scope, no one has access to these images, information, or video that's being collected. The security, and I may got a couple of packets of information. You can see that the privacy concerns, that the security of the data is paramount. This meets all federal standard guidelines for storage. It's cloud compliant. It meets CJIS compliancy, which is the GCIC, NCIC. It's how we run tags and check people for warrants and things of that nature. SOC 2 compliant. It's AES 256-bit encryption, and the list goes on and on. So the data that we are collecting and the data that will be stored is protected on several different levels, to include audit tracking. So anyone who accesses the system and views the information, there is a detailed audit log. So you know who looked at what information, at what time, for how long, and any of that information was copied, et cetera. So those things are just important for us to understand, for the commission to understand as you look at this project to continue to move forward. On a last note, it's important to mention that Brunswick Police Department already uses Axon in their day-to-day duties. Their body cameras, their tasers, their in-car video cameras, those services are all provided by Axon. The body cameras that are stored, the images and the video, it's the same way that will be used to store these cameras that we're talking about putting it around the intersections now. So that continuity and the efficiency that's built in this platform, since we already use Axon's products and we already use Axon storage, et cetera, it just makes it seamless when we integrate those functions throughout the city. And it saves us money with Axon, because we're an existing customer, because we spend a lot of money with Axon, outfitting our police department with all the technology that they have. It's more efficient in terms of dollars that we spend to provide that service. So that is a summary of the LPRs and the camera system through this grant. The second component is additional lighting throughout our city. There is a terms of service with Georgia Power. You've got that in your packet. $85,000 of the total grant was allocated towards additional lighting throughout our city. Using Georgia Power is already, sort of a strategic partner of ours. They provide all the lighting throughout the city now. And so there are 64 locations. Again, those locations are in your packets that we will be putting up additional lights throughout our city to parts of the community that need the additional lighting. We are really concentrating on our community and our neighborhoods, not so much business districts or major roadways where there's already a lot of light, but other places in our neighborhoods that, desperately need light. And those selections were based on some data that the prior Chief Jones had pulled, looking at some of the crime data, mapping that out, writing those areas and seeing where he thought we needed the lights. And then that's how we chose those locations. That's the Georgia Power component. Critically important for the safety of our community. I've spoken with Chief Smith. She believes in this system because the police department is going to be the main benefactor of the system and their response. So I know she's excited, and she thinks it's also a benefit for the city. Right? So that concludes the information that I have for you guys.
Thank you for that. Questions or comments from the commission?
Mr. Mayor, I have a couple questions for ACM Berquist. You mentioned about, I want to know what happens after the 3 years? How is the system monitored?
It'll be monitored in the same fashion. The only thing that changes is there will be an annual fee that we would continue forward with that would provide the same, the same coverage, the same cameras, nothing would change. So we would just start an annual year-to-year contract moving forward.
About how much is that annual fee?
Jonathan, I'm gonna ask you to save me on this one because it's buried deep in this contract. Can you help me out with the annual cost after the 3-year contract?
Yes, sir. I apologize. I will have to pull that information for you, but I can get that to you later this evening once I have our contracts team review that.
Okay, thank you.
And you may have answered this. What's the expectation, the completion of the installation, installing of everything, the cameras and the lights? Expectation of the completing the installation?
Yes, ma'am. You mean the date?
The date,
October 31st of this year.
everything?
Everything
Okay.
will be up and
Georgia
operational.
Power and Axon. Whoever.
Yes, the October 31st is for the entire package.
And you mentioned about the 180 days by the Georgia law, the Georgia code, in 30 months. Are we storing, you mentioned, I guess, Axon will have the storage and we have the storage.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we have locally the capacity to store that type of data?
We don't store any of the data locally. All of that is cloud-based. And it's all handled through Axon. And, that's factored into the price is the storage of that information, but it makes it safer because it's, it keeps it more secure. And of course, if you wanted to store that amount of data in-house, that takes a lot of space, a lot of servers. It's
Okay.
much more expensive to do that in-house. So that Axon handles all of the storage.
Okay, I thought you said that we store as well, but okay, just
No, ma'am.
only Axon will be storing the information.
Yes, ma'am.
And who will have access to this, to the cloud?
The only people that would have access to this system would be our 911 and public safety. And that would really be funneled down, through the chief, because there are certain permissions that some officers may not need. All right. There are some executive leadership within the police department that might need more access. So the system is robust in terms of you can prevent individuals from looking at things that they don't quite frankly have the clearance for, as well as track who's looking at what. But I think that would be something as we move forward, the chief would work with Axon and make a determination within her department who has access to what. But outside of 911 and the city police, no one would have access.
So besides the 180 days, 30 months,
Mhm.
who would it just be and I know we keep the accidents or incidents, who will is it an automatic purge? Or does it have to be, we authorize Axon to go ahead and purge by 6 months from now? How does that work?
Yeah, you set that up in installation. And I'll give you an example. You might have an intersection that's a lot of live video that incurs a lot of space. And, outside of accidents, there may not be a lot going on at that intersection. So you might retain video at that intersection for 3 days, 5 days. And after that, there's no need to continue to hold that video because it's not as relevant. There are other maybe higher crime areas or intersections or busier intersections that we may say, well, we want to keep the information at this location for 30 days or 2 weeks. It incurs more storage. But as we move to see where the patterns are with the crimes and the wrecks, we can determine which cameras will save longer. We will determine, what we want to purge, and we can sort of internally set those controls, based on what we see, how long do we think, the cameras or the pictures need to be held.
And this is my last question. So who reviews this data? Are we only going to look at it when somebody alerts you to something? Or are we doing a daily spot? Who reports, oh, you may need to check this out? Or
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Outside of that scope I was talking about of a criminal investigation, that would trigger someone looking at this information for, a tag or a vehicle description or someone riding a bike or what have you. Outside of that, this is not a system where we're just going to monitor it, sit around and look at it. Maybe we have a hurricane, right? We have some localized flooding around some of those intersections. Those cameras can be viewed for, looking at various intersections for debris during a storm. Again, accidents if we need to recall footage, criminal investigations if the officer trying to find evidence. But outside of that, I think, it's just not a system, sort of created for people to sit around and watch it. And quite frankly, I think officers are going to be too busy. They got too much going on to sit around and just, look for things. Now, if a vehicle is stolen and it crosses a camera, that stolen vehicle will automatically alert police that, hey, a stolen vehicle just went through this intersection, and it'll take a snapshot and send that snapshot to all of our officers. So there are times when the system alerts officers to look. But outside of that, or an investigation that they are actively working, no one will be monitoring the cameras. Yes, ma'am.
make sure you please get that annual cost.
Yes, ma'am. I apologize. That's my
Thank you.
mistake.
So my assumption is that most of the camera watching, to your point, is driven by a 911 call. So it's what calls we're already responding to. It's just giving us the opportunity then to jump on and get additional information as you're responding to a call, or as the supervisor's in the field to say, I jumped on the camera and it looks like this is a pretty bad accident. I need to get some more officers over there or something like that. Is that?
That's correct. And there are some times where you wait hours and hours and hours for a business owner to get video footage. But if we had access to it in real time, those hours make a tremendous impact when we're, investigating, violent crimes. And to that point, in the last 12 months, the county has the similar system throughout the county. And that system has solved 2 murders in the last 12 months, 1 for the county, 1 for the city. So already in our community, these cameras have already made a tremendous impact in helping us solve crime. And they're not even in the city yet. So,
Thank you.
yes.
Additional questions or comments?
And I know you already answered it, but just so the public can hear. So these are just intersections. The cameras aren't going to be shining in people's living rooms, in their restrooms, in their backyards.
No, ma'am, there is no residential component. It is all going to be, GDOT right of ways, city right of ways, and, businesses, but nothing to do with people's residences, much less inside their house.
And I knew that. I just, like you stated, these are for purposes to help solve crime and to keep our community and neighborhoods safe.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
It's not making, as some people say, the police job easier. It's helping them because we need it, right?
Yes.
So I appreciate that and all the work that you all took to find Axon to be the best fit for this, and thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
If
have
there's
a
no other-
question. I have a question regarding the 64 light locations.
Yes, ma'am.
I know that you said Chief Jones, and I remember we did a list when Chief Jones was still here. I couldn't remember all of the locations. And so is this the maximum number of lights afforded, or is just the lights that have just been decided to be placed at these 64? Is 64 the max amount that we have or that we contracted for?
Yes, ma'am. Based on the 3-year contract with the 64 lights, over the 3 years, that cost incurred will be approximately 85,000. So those 64 locations are the total number of lights provided for that grant money.
Okay. Now, in looking at this list and wondering, was this list reassessed, or was it just taken from prior information that was given? Because I'm like looking at it, and it has like I'm looking at the repeated streets that are on this list, and I'm looking at some of the streets, and I'm like, I'll take let's take Wolf Street. Wolf Street has 3 locations. Ellis Street has 3 locations. I can see Glen Avenue because it's an extended thoroughfare. Um, I'm looking at like Gordon Street has 3 locations. And so I'm asking this to see and to make sure that these locations are still valid locations or good locations that you want to put these additional lighting components in. I remember having a discussion with Commissioner Rowe regarding some other areas. I'm not sure, Commissioner Rowe, do you see or did you see those areas that you had concerns about that you and I discussed regarding lighting, just to make sure that we are maximizing um, some other areas? I saw some that had like 2 or more uh, lights to be installed on those locations, and just making sure that when we look at this list, that we are uh, reassessing the actual need for locating these lights. Have any of these needs changed? Are they still all applicable? And on some of them that have more than two lights designated to be installed, are those still actually needed, or can one of those lights be shifted to another area, or
Yes.
is it still just applicable on the list that's provided?
Yes, ma'am. So I'll give you a little bit of history. Prior Chief Jones actually rode with the Georgia Power representative to each one of these locations after sunset to make sure that the light was needed. So I know that each location has been verified. Since then, I know that they have not, but there have been no lights added to these locations also. So I am assuming, even though, we all know how that saying goes, that these locations are still void of light. Now, when we look at Gordon Street, there's the 1700 block, the 2200 block. So there's 5 blocks in between those 2 lights. And I think that distance is great enough that, it could warrant a light at each intersection.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that these lights are not, unlike the intersections, which take a tremendous amount of coordination between, GDOT and permitting, and the work to get those cameras up. These lights are much simpler. So if there is an area or a street that you think that needs a light, we can definitely engage in that conversation, and, replacing one light with another. While we don't want to recreate this list by any means, I think there is some room to navigate whether, we think a better area, is suited for an additional light.
Okay, yeah, because like I'm looking at Ellis Street, it's slated for 3 lights. And it's about a 3 block radius between the 1928 and the 1606. I can see the 2718. That's a good that's a few blocks between the 1900. But maybe look at the Ellis Street locations.
Yes, ma'am.
That's all I have.
Really, Commissioner Harris, there was, thank you for bringing that up, but, the locations that I spoke of, it's not on here. But I'll just get ACM Bergquist to just ride over there. It's gonna be Cleburne and N Street.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am, we can do that.
You can ride all of Cleburne, all of N.
Okay, and I know there's an area that's really dark over in Windsor Park, and that's right at what's that? Palmetto. I have to get with you. I can't remember, but it's like right at that curve. And it is pitch black, but I'll get with you, ACM.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Commissioner.
ACM, I notice here, do we have to pay first and then being reimbursed? Because I noticed invoices that were in our packet.
Yes, ma'am. It's a reimbursable grant.
Okay.
So we pay, submit through the state, and we are reimbursed.
And those are coming out of general fund or?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
yes, ma'am.
I just think 3 quick questions. On both contracts, are we locked into the exact kind of streets and things that we have on both of these lists, or are we just approving this amount?
The 57 cameras is the final number. One thing to think about is there are.
Well, not necessarily the final number. I was trying to say between the lights that we're doing with Georgia Power and the cameras, are we approving a specific number? And between now, when we just approve it, can these corners be amended and changed? Or are we locked into what we are approving tonight? We're locked into this list. We're locked into the list of corners that the lights are go on. Are we just locking into 66 lights?
We are locking into the 66 lights, the 57 cameras.
Got
And
it.
I'll give you an example.
Okay.
There's some areas between the city and county where the county already has LPR cameras.
Right.
We don't need to put cameras on top of cameras.
Right.
So there might be a specific intersection where, since they have 2,
Mhm.
instead of us putting up 4, we only need to put 2.
Got
Now
it.
we have 2 additional cameras.
To put somewhere else outside
To
of.
figure out, and I sent an email out last week asking if there's, any other intersections or locations like City Hall, the police department,
Mhm.
right? So there can be a location. Another idea that we had that was brought forth by Jonathan is we have the speed trailers through the police department. You can actually mount one on the speed trailer. So wherever you move that trailer, now you get video to go along with the flashing sign, the message board, and the detection of the speed, the tracking of the speed. So there are other things that we can do with some of the extra cameras, and input from the commission is, wanted. So we can make a determination on if there are extra cameras, how do we place those, or maybe where do we place them?
Good deal. And so approval tonight will approve the investment, the number of cameras, the number of lights, but not necessarily set in stone the exact location of all of that equipment.
Correct.
Okay.
And the only thing I would like to note is
Uh-huh.
because of the GDOT requirements and permitting, the locations are significant. So
Gotcha.
those need to be finalized as soon as possible.
No doubt. I'm not as worried about the camera more than the street lights.
Perfect. Yes,
So,
ma'am.
the other question is, I think you used a term that was kind of interesting when you were talking about the amount of time that we could keep it. And if I'm misrepresenting what you said, let me know. it sounds like you're saying there is some discretion of the local community or municipality or county as to how long they store that information or keep that information. Is
Mhm.
that correct?
Yeah, the state law sets a minimum threshold,
Okay.
right?
So
So,
that
so 180 days is the minimum based on state law.
is the minimum.
If we
And-
decide to, hold on to that longer, then we can do that.
And so internally tonight and publicly, because I think it matters, are we agreeing to that state minimum or are we agreeing to always uphold the state minimum, but our police force could decide to change that at any point in time? If we are doing the latter, would they bring that change back publicly so the community would know?
Yeah, I don't think there's any problem with that. I mean, there's nothing to hide. It's everything that would be stored would be of evidentiary value if it's stored for long-term use with criminal investigations. And, that's nothing that we're trying to hide. I mean, that's very transparent. So
Right.
with that being said, I don't think there's any issue with that. We are going to uphold that minimum.
Mhm.
And then anything that we decide to do internally to increase that minimum, there's no secret. So we can.
Good deal.
be
I would
transparent.
just want to, if we decided to increase those numbers away from the minimum,
Yes.
that we bring that back to the commission at least so we can understand why we're increasing those minimums and so it can be made publicly available. So tonight, the vote would be voting into the state minimums. And if there was a change, then we would be alerted somehow.
Yeah, correct. And there will be a lot of things that are sort of negotiated as we move through locations, how much time, different crimes that the chief may deem that we need more storage for longer time. I mean, so the audit trails, who has access, a lot of that will be built out as we move. So it'll kind of be being created in real time as we get things installed. And that'll definitely be a conversation, with the commission, with Chief Smith and the police department.
Perfect.
Yes, sir.
The amount of things that the cameras could then alert our safety forces to, is that list kind of set in stone, or is that list not necessarily a bright line? There are several other modes of information that could cause that camera to pick up a license plate. The reason I say that is, God willing, it picks up a stolen car. That's a good example. Is it also picking up, the Amber Alert? Is it also picking up all of
Yes.
those different modes of information and then sending that to our office?
Yes, if someone reports a car stolen in the state of California and it crosses through one of our intersections, it'll alert us that the car is stolen. If there's an Amber Alert with a missing child or a kidnapping victim and it crosses our cameras, it will immediately notify all of the public safety, within the BPD. So yeah, there are many alerts and notifications built into that system.
And if I am a citizen and let's just say I have a bench warrant out for my arrest because I did not show up for a parking ticket, does the camera pick that license plate up? Does it alert officers? And is there a mandated response to that information or anything to that nature?
No, I don't believe I believe it depends on how it's entered into the system. But if a vehicle is ran, it'll come back to tell you if the vehicle is stolen. There's not gonna look into, because the person driving the car may be different from the person who's owns the car.
Mhm.
So, we're not necessarily triggered off, who's driving it, unless,
Okay.
again, it's involved in a crime and there are certain things that connect the person to the car.
Okay.
But just in general, as vehicles pass, we're looking for stolen vehicles, things of that nature. We're not going to do a deep dive every time a car crosses the camera just to see, if it comes back to someone and who that is and what they're involved in. Yeah.
So
So
I just want to make sure
yes, sir.
of, just whatever we're using.
And unless there's a
for.
crime associated and the police have a reason to dig and continue that investigation,
Mhm.
it's surface level.
And when you say it's manually put in as to what would make a license plate show up, is that put in by our officer? So that's inside of the system. We can change necessarily what we're looking for in that.
Yeah, that's all
Okay.
entered only by law enforcement, certified law enforcement officers. And in this case, through the city, if we enter that, it'll come from our
Mhm.
employees.
And the last two questions that I have is, number one, how long does it take to get an agreement like this with Georgia Power to get additional lights? The reason I ask that is I know for sure Commissioner Roll and Commissioner Harris have been talking about lights for a very long time. and they have been serious about some places in the community that they want to ensure that they see lights. And so in terms of seeing the number that is before us at 85,000, which is, I think, nominal to how hard they've been trying to figure out how to get some lights in certain areas. I'm trying to figure out how long does it take to get a contract like this with Georgia Power? Do we have to have a certain amount of lights before we engage in a lighting service agreement? Or if there are 10 other spaces that we don't see and we know how much it costs, we can go ahead and enter that agreement fairly quickly.
Yeah, we can, because we can do that outside of this, outside of this grant if we wanted to. So that's just a partnership with our rep from Georgia Power, a phone call and ask. And those things move quickly.
Perfect. The last question, and I don't know if he has it, is maybe a two-part question. I know we're getting a grant, and I definitely understand that, and I'm thankful for the commission and staff continuing to fight to bring those dollars in from the state. But raw dollars from our budget, what is that number? That after the grant has paid what it's going to pay, what will we be left paying?
Well, that's what Commissioner Atkinson Williams asked earlier on an annual basis. We need to bring that figure back. We need to find out what that figure is and bring it back. We don't have it in front of us for the annual, commitment once the 3 years is.
Solid. But right now we're only committing to the 3 years.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
At the end of the 3 years, if we decide we're done, there's no obligation to continue for.
Got it. Okay. Any other questions?
I have one. And I had addressed this with ACM, and this was on the civil side of things. And I know that we're doing this for public safety on this side of things. But while we're at this and we're viewing lighting and we're viewing the placement of cameras, we have such a huge problem with illegal dumping. And so I would wonder how we could leverage, and we may not be able to leverage any of those dollars, but the potential while we're looking at the totality of safety. And to me, illegal dumping can lead to be a safety matter. It's just on the civil side and how it's approached. And I've looked at it to see how Georgia looks at that as well. But if we can kind of look at that, because we have a lot of illegal dumping by landscaping companies, by contractors, and they do come into not just the intra-cities, but they also dump in the inter-city areas as well. And I remember Commissioner Kaysen expressing that with the landscaping company that was dumping their remains out in the River Ridge area. And so we have a lot of that. And if there is some way or some way we can segue or leverage, I'm not really sure. I'm just putting it out there to be able to combat the huge illegal dumping problem we have.
Yes, ma'am, Commissioner Harris. I'd actually, not related to this, but with Commissioner Roll, we are looking at a blight campaign that we are trying to, get rolled up. And so I do agree that is a problem, not only visually, but, you're right. Those blighted areas do create more crime, and that's proven statistically. So while I don't want to, commit one of these cameras out of the 57 to that specific need, I do think there is a need for a greater conversation to include video surveillance and other means to make sure that we are combating the illegal dumps throughout our city.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor, I have a couple quick questions if you don't mind. Mr. Request, I was trying to see in the contract, I know we've had a lot of discussion back and forth about storage of data. And one of my questions is, are we limited on the amount of storage that we have in this contract? Because obviously that will affect how long we would store stuff, right? Because that takes up more space. And if we were to go over, let's say, a threshold, is there an increase in price?
Yeah, I do know, I'm going to ask Jonathan for a little bit of help, but I do know that how long we choose to store video will determine how long we can keep it, right? So that's kind of, we have to sort of create that balance of, what's most important because the storage is finite. Ultimately, once the storage runs out, everything, let's say it's 30 days, at day 30, day one is gone. So it sort of just holds that amount of storage and everything else is written over.
Okay.
But Jonathan, do you want to comment in terms of the storage space and any dollars attached to that?
Yes, sir. So storage is included in the contract. You have unlimited storage with Outpost, so there are no additional storage fees outside of what is in the contract proposal.
Okay, great. Thank you. I wanted to also be clear and make sure that, a lot of this is making sure that we're clear and transparent with the public, as you said. And I want to kind of circle back to a couple of the questions that the mayor had in relation to how tags are identified and so forth. So I want to make sure that what I believe I'm hearing and understanding is correct and clear to everybody. So when these cameras are reading license plate tags, they're capturing that data and they're not taking that data and then running it through a series of a database to say, has this vehicle committed a crime or the person driving the vehicle committed the crime? The only thing it would search would be if that tag had been entered by our law enforcement or another law enforcement entity that associated that tag number with the crime. Does that make sense? So it's like the 911, an incident report or something's happened, and then that tag's entered to then flag it, right? Not the other way around. Not that it's like scanning a tag and saying, I wonder if this car's committed a crime. Am I articulating that correctly?
Well, in order for a vehicle to be flagged as stolen or, linked to some sort of crime that the police are investigating, that information has to be entered into the NCIC database first. And then once it's in the system, that's how the FUSA system will know to alert based off whatever tag it was, because it's been entered by other law enforcement as stolen, et cetera.
Perfect. Thank you. And then this may be more for City Attorney Corey. I'm curious, this data is ours, it's city property. We're storing it with the help of Axon. Are there any situations where this data can be subpoenaed specifically with other, like, let's say a civil lawsuit or something like that, or a lawsuit against the city? How is that handled? Obviously they're doing these all over the country. I just want to make sure that we're covered from a liability standpoint as well. But vice versa, is this something that, something happens on city property, we happen to capture on the camera? Is that something that then we would also potentially use in a civil case as a defense?
Yes, I mean, it is. I mean, it's essentially creating open records, as these video files are stored. So I would say that yes, depending on the case by case analysis and whether or not there's an exemption provided, or if there's some reason to have it sealed or otherwise, through an in-camera review by a judge. But for the most part, yes, they'd be subject to subpoena or an open records request.
Okay. And then with that, is there any guidance from a state law perspective? We have clear statutes on if there's a criminal investigation, how long we're supposed to hold it. Is there any statute that guides us in if there's a motor vehicle accident on city property, how long do we got to hold the tape if it's, that kind of thing?
Yeah, there's record retention statutes, and there's also, I mean, it would fall within those exemptions, like what you're talking about. If there's an active investigation, the open record law already addresses that, is that, the initial report would be subject to immediate disclosure. However, as the investigation goes on, the investigation files are not subject to disclosure until it is concluded. I would consider these items to be part of that same type of structure, and would be addressed by those same types of statutes. I hope I'm answering the question.
Yeah, I guess my key is that we're trusting you guys to make the right decision. from a legal standpoint that we're holding on to this as long as we need to and not longer than we need to. And so as we're implementing something new, I want to make sure that you guys are communicating and we have a solid policy in place with us and our law enforcement and our contractual partners, that
Right.
we're all on the same page and that we're doing the right thing.
And to that point, if there is data or files that that are used or as a part of a court case or something like that, then there are different rules that would apply as to how long those are held and how long the evidence is sealed and how long it's maintained. So yes, it would all follow through. I mean, the same types of statutes that we're currently operating under.
Perfect. And again, just going back, I want to make sure that, we mentioned, I started with data and how long we can store it. I want to make sure that if something goes to Brian's office and he's like, oh, this may open us up for some civil liability, or there's an incident with, God forbid, a staff member or something like that, that's communicated through, I don't know if that's directed through your office or the police department or whoever that is, to say, oh, pull this footage and hold it until we figure out what's going on, is where my theme is there. So thank you. I don't have any further questions. Ready to move on?
Any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, we will open it for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the contract with Axon and Georgia Power for Public Safety Community Violence Reduction Grant.
Hearing the first, do I hear a second?
Second.
Hearing the first and the second, all those in favor show by the sign of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you, Assistant City Manager Berquist.
Thank you.
And with that, we will return to item 3, consider approval to declare police department vehicle surplus. Chief Smith.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Apologize for my tardiness. Police business kind of ran over. Tonight we'll be discussing the surplus vehicles of the Brunswick Police Department, consisting of the enterprise surplus vehicles, as well as vehicles that Brunswick Police Department has deemed surplus, separate from the enterprise turn-in vehicles. We sent an updated list today. I don't know if you all received it. Okay, I brought it with me. That's fine. We had a meeting today. We had a meeting this afternoon with Enterprise, which caused us to update the list that we currently have. We are in the process of receiving 10 vehicles from Enterprise, and through our contract with Enterprise, we have the option to turn in older vehicles with high mileage or vehicles that have had high maintenance costs, and so that we can put officers back in the newer vehicles. And so we have identified 12 vehicles to turn into Enterprise over the next several months, ranging anywhere from a 2014 all the way to a 2019 vehicle. Specifically, 2024 Ford Edge has a market value of $2,500, and actually the market values on these vehicles have been placed a little lower. Enterprise expects to get more out of these vehicles than listed, but the market values have been placed lower. That Edge has 110,501 miles on it. So at the end of the sale of these vehicles, we're expected to get $44,500 in equity to be turned back to the city, that we can use in the general fund or put back toward the invoice of the enterprise vehicles. So I'm asking that the commission review these and declare these vehicles as enterprise turn-in vehicles.
Thank you, Chief Smith. Questions or comments?
Chief, I don't think you'd be able to answer this. Maybe the city manager. Who determines if it goes to general fund or stays within your department to pay for the invoice for the additional?
I believe that would be a city manager question, but it's my understanding that all monies go into general fund, but I could be out speaking, so I reserve that for the city manager.
Goes into the general fund.
Any particular criteria for these funds, or any funds that are generated from outsource? As
the chief stated, we have to pay for the contract for enterprise. So it's built into repaying or paying for that contract out of the general fund.
Okay, that's what I want to make sure it gets applied to the contract. Thank you.
Additional questions or comments? Seeing none. Oh, Commissioner Harris, anything? Just wanted to make sure.
No, I don't have anything.
Yes, ma'am. We will open it for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the listed vehicles provided by Chief Smith, declare them as surplus, return them to enterprise for auction.
Hearing the first, do I hear a second? Hearing the first and a second, all those in favor show by the sign of aye. Aye. All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. We will now move to number 4, consider approval of enterprise consignment auction surplus vehicles.
Well, that was the first one, so I might have mixed them up. So this will be Brunswick Police Department surplus vehicles. These vehicles range from a 2008 Crown Vic, all the way to 2000. They're quite old. For some time, vehicles have been placed at the city shop and kind of stored as junk. And so it's time for us to get rid of some of these vehicles. You can see they have unknown conditions, they have high mileage, they've been wrecked and they're not running. And so here we have the Kelly Blue Book values, and those are clearly estimates because some of them we can't crank and have no way of knowing what they'll be valued at. So we're requesting and asking that the commission will take that into consideration and declare these vehicles surplus to be sold on neogov.com.
Questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll open it for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we declare these items listed by Chief Smith as surplus. And these items, this was through a public auction on gov.deals.com.
Hearing the first, do I hear a second?
Second.
Hearing the first and the second, all those in favor show by the sign of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
With that, we'll move on to number 6, consider approval of financial report as of October 31st, 2025. City Manager McDuffie.
Good evening. And thank you to the commission. We're trying to get back on our regular schedule of finance reports for the city. I appreciate you all's consideration and patience thus far. My expectation and goal is to present this information as the first third of this fiscal year. Next month, we'll bring forth financial reporting through the first 6 months of the fiscal year. And then in April, we will bring forth the through February of the fiscal year, which will get us on our normal schedule of reporting for financials. I have provided the information in front of you, and this is the format that has been updated by CKH. Cal Hale is on the line if there's some specific questions that he may be able to answer, and I will just review through the report. On the first page, you see the general fund, a summary of the general fund with revenues for the month of October or through October and year to date, which shows a net revenue of $776,000 year to date through October, which is about 30% of revenues collected and 27% of expenses through that date. The stormwater fund is shown as a summary with a year-to-date net revenue of $194,812.78. And the sanitation fund summary is shown with the net expenditure over revenues of $133,815. And please note, in all of these funds, there's no property tax or stormwater fee or sanitation fees because those would have been collected in November after this report. The next page, next page shows just a more detailed information about the general fund, which shows the local option sales tax collection through October, shows the property tax and other revenue for the total of $7.2 million of total revenues with the $6.4 million of total expenses. On the next page, it shows the stormwater and kind of outlines again some of the revenues, showing the fees for stormwater fees that's collected, and then the personnel and operating costs for the stormwater fund. Next page shows the sanitation fund and the same information, kind of an outline or itemization of the revenues for sanitation, and then the expenses, operating expenses for sanitation as well. The next one shows the Roosevelt Lawrence Center, which shows year-to-date through October of $61,339 of expenditures, which is about 28% of the budget. The next page shows the Roosevelt Harris Center with a total of $172,687, which shows a net expenditures over revenue of $101,000. But as you know, we have to get reimbursed for some of the expenditures for the Roosevelt Harris Center. Plus, we have a transfer from the general fund that has not been transferred through October for that particular fund. The next slide shows the SPLOST. And as you know, we did a reconciliation of the SPLOST where there are only two projects that are left open, the wayfinding signs and the Sidney Lanier, and there's not been any activity for those. So there's $146,000 of funds left to spend total for those two funds in SPLOST 6. SPLOST 22, there's a itemization of all the projects that we have for SPLOST 22. It shows a total collections to date of $19,669,000 from SPLOST receipts. We've had some reimbursements from DNR, transfer of the LMIG from the GDOT, and a transfer from the general fund, and interest income in the SPLOST of $644,000 for a total revenue in the SPLOST 22 of $21,460,084. Total expended for SPLOST 22 is $36,040. We've had reimbursements received of $1,100,000, and we spent $8,919,000 out of our actual SPLOST revenue. Next slide shows our balances, and these are our balances as of October in the Georgia Fund 1 and Prime South accounts. We list all of the Georgia Fund 1 accounts, including the general fund, the SPLOST 6, SPLOST 22, sanitation, ARPA, and then the other funds that we have, they don't have money in the Georgia Fund 1. They only have money in the Prime South accounts. It's showing as of October, our balances of Prime South was $3,909,000. And the total in Georgia Fund 1 was $21,949,000. And that's it as of October. The next slide shows the Norwich Fund, and that one wasn't filled in. I'll make sure that for the next report has the kind of the information from inception. But as you know, when we reported that fund, it only has the interest being accrued at this point, and there's been no activity other than interest income. The ARPA fund, I did go back because the ARPA fund has changed for this fiscal year. Total ARPA funds received is $10,279,327, and that's including $895,000 of interest income. As you can see, it shows the allocation of $10,279,000, which of that total expenditures have been $4,679,673. We transferred money through the general funds into some other funds. We transferred $1.4 million of storm drainage improvements, which was for the Albany Street project. We transferred $2.5 million to the housing program and $220,000 to transit. Of the remaining funds in the ARPA fund, we have $126,000 that's under contract with the community action. We have $405,000 that was part of the improvements for Howard Coffin Park and the grant improvements that were done there. And then we have unallocated of $938,000 and $855 that's not been allocated for any purpose. And most of that is the interest income in that fund. That concludes my report. If you have any questions.
Questions or comments?
But I just have one quick question. Are you, from what you're showing in that Norwich Common Funds, is that all you're saying that's in that Norwich Common Funds?
No, what I
Oh.
said was the information wasn't in there.
Oh, okay.
Normally, what we report is what has been collected and expended from inception, but that's only the interest income that's been recorded. We need to fill that in so that it is a complete report. But it had, the last time I looked at it, probably about $390,000.
I remember it was like 300 and something thousand. Okay, so
Yeah, it's
that was
still
my
there.
concern. I was like, okay, wait a minute. Okay,
It just wasn't captured on the report.
okay, all
Thank
right,
you.
thank you.
Additional questions or comments?
This is the financial report as of October 31st. Did you mention anything about July, August, and September of 2025?
It's all included. What I did was, we're trying to catch up on all of our finances. So everything up to October is included in this report.
Okay. Okay.
No, to the end of October.
Well, first I want to say, this is great. I see our investment of having a consultant to assist you all is paying off, and will pay off more in the long run. Looking at the second page, and you mentioned, I just want to make sure, and I'm looking at the second page, we have the budget and 0% for its collection of revenue of property taxes. So in September, October.
Well, you know, the property taxes is kind of accounted for differently. We actually, as when they are billed is when we basically put that in. So they will go in, but it goes in as a total amount, not what's collected. But that will go in November. That will be total of what was billed for property taxes will be in the report.
So why do we wait if you, to put September, October, or just September, should have been in October? Why are we waiting to 6 months later to put the things in, showing that revenue?
Because it's an accounting, it's the GASB way of accounting for the property taxes. And it's done on the basis that's kind of dictated.
Okay.
Just entered once a year, right?
Yes, it's
Lovely.
put in as it's billed. Yes.
Even it's billed in prior to that. You get your bill in.
And I'm not sure why it's not here, but it's normally put in as billed, and I think it'll show up on the November report.
Okay, the funds that we received in for those other months.
Everything that was billed will be on the report. It's not recorded as it's collected. Because
So-
usually when we report property taxes, we report everything that's billed, not when it's collected, but when it's billed.
Okay, so everything is billed out. This says revenue. And revenue is income that comes in. Am I correct? Or are you projecting that this is what, because your budget projects, the number that you have here is 6 million, 6.3 million. It projects what you think that's gonna come in from the property taxes
Mhm.
that will be billed.
Right.
But by now, when it says the month and year to date, it should be like the numbers that the funds that we have already collected.
It will not, it's not shown that way and it's not reported that way. And I need to get the auditors to tell you why it's not reported that
Okay.
way. Because it's actually in every year, based on the GASB rules, we put the property taxes in as they are billed. It's a number that goes into the general fund as it's billed, not as it's collected.
So property taxes are billed at different times. There's a set that's billed this month and a set that's
No,
billed another month. But they
It's
are-
one entry, and that's why it's empty now. It's because it's one entry that shows property tax as billed. Kyle, do you have an additional explanation for this?
I do have to agree with what you have said. So property taxes go in on the date that the bill is issued out. And that is set by just the standards, as you mentioned. So I mean, it's something that I can definitely look at and speak to the auditor about too, to make it, if there is an additional way to show it, but in general, it's not recorded the date that it arrives in the bank account. It's the date that that bill is issued to the residents.
Okay.
But I can look into it for you.
Fresh to me, what franchise taxes, give me some example, and I know that in the loss is the other and selective sales and use of taxes, those revenues. Give me an example, because I'm not seeing what I'm,
Okay, so franchise taxes is the Georgia Power
Okay.
utility,
all right.
okay? And then the selective sales and use is the alcohol.
And what about the local option sales tax?
That's the lost.
The
That's
law.
Sales tax, yes. That's the sales tax we get from the
Right, okay.
1% from the
That's why,
state.
okay, so the other one is the education. Okay, we're moving on. Next page. Back to that, so we have 803,000 year-to-date, 3 million, almost 31%.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, since I'm not there, can they post those on the screen so I can kind of keep up?
Okay, you
Thank
can
you.
put them back up on the screen. And we're on page 3. Go back a couple of pages to where it says stormwater at the top. If I can do it.
So I'm going to that page. So we can skip over to the R. Lawrence for me.
Okay.
The R. Lawrence, just looking at this, and I guess when I'm looking at this budget, we have already utilized 40, and we were just in first quarter, July, August, September, and maybe we could say 4 months, October, since you say as October 31st. We only budget out $92,782 for salaries and wages, and we have already, it's only but 4 months and used 43% of that.
Yeah, I'll look at that particular line item and let you know what's in there, because it should be more closer to 33%.
Okay, yeah. Then we have down to the water sewage. We
Yeah,
have
that-
spent, and it was it a leak? Or it says 126%
Yeah, I'll check that one out too. I'll have to go down and look at every line item.
I
didn't
noticed-
do that
okay.
for this report, but I will look at each of those line items because, yeah, I was.
And I assume that this particular spreadsheet is not complete because it says dividend zero, the percentages are not accurate.
Well, it won't calculate if there's zeros in that line item.
Okay,
So it is complete, but those line items are zero, so it won't calculate if there's zero.
but it should not have that formula right there. It should be.
Yeah,
a
it should just
dash.
be zeroed out.
All right. My next page, which is the R. Harris Center. Has the county contributed yet the $80,000, or when do we expect the 80,000?
We bill them and I will have to, it's not recorded here. So as of October, it should have been billed for the first quarter. I need to make sure that they have that billing
Okay, so it's billed,
quarterly.
it's quarterly, so they divided that 80 into, okay, all right. And because we just, the next page, which includes the capital project Splash 6, we don't have, I know you said it's $146,892 left, but we don't have the total revenue. We used to get where the interest earned, you know, it should mirror like what the
Okay.
information
Yeah.
presented in the capital 22.
Yeah, I'll make sure that's added as a line item for the interest.
Okay. And when you're looking at the cemetery restoration, what was completed? Do you recall? Or I wish Mr. Aberson was here. He probably- It was for 15,000.
I'll have to see what was in there.
Okay.
15,050. Had to be something, I'm not sure. I'll have to look at that. I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay. When you looking at, let's look at Splosh 22. And when you're looking at the remainder column of 20,490,000, you know, the rest. And then you look at the total revenue of 21,460,000, you know, the rest. The difference between those two is $917,717.51. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And when you subtract the 600, the interest earned from that, you get $325,064.49. Where will the overage be? Will the overage be reallocated, or what happens to it?
Okay, so as we report information regarding the projects that we are spending, you know, it's by referendum, so no money can be spent outside of these areas. But once we get close, it's like, okay, storm drainage had $10,500,000. If we are close to that amount, or, you know, think we're going to go over with the project, then we will come back to the commission and ask for reallocation in whichever line item there may be some additional expenditures, such as if we have public works equipment and infrastructure upgrades, and we say, okay, we had thought we were going to buy one dump truck, but then another dump truck died, then those additional funds can be used to be allocated for that additional equipment.
Okay.
But it has to go through the commission in order to do that.
All right. So the fire department vehicle that we were talking about, would that come out of public safety replacement of vehicles equipment? Yes, no?
The
or
lease.
could it?
Lease, the equipment that you're talking about, at this point, we are paying it out of general fund, or would be, or I'm looking at for next year's budget, maybe putting it in the general fund. We don't have enough in the public safety unless it's some allocated overage that's put into that.
Or I guess I was going to the overage. Okay.
Yeah. But that overage right now, okay, so we're at $19 million of receipts. Based on our projections, we're almost $4 million over where we would have been based on the projection. So we expect to have some overages that will be, you know, requested to be allocated to the project at some point.
And just to clarify, when you say overage, is not overage on cost overruns on.
No, I'm
spend-
talking about revenue.
Increase.
Receipt.
collections. Thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you for that clarification.
I notice here we have bank charges. How did
Yeah.
that come on the splash line?
I need to check to see why those are there. I think they probably, well, anything associated with the SPLOST account is recorded there, but we should not be getting bank charges on a $20 million account.
Exactly.
We ordered a.
But we have to kind of,
No, you don't
big
order no.
fat thing of check.
No.
but if it's anything associated with that account is charged there.
Okay. We could go to the Georgia Fund 1. I know that we receive a large sum of funds. Where is that? And you know what funds I'm talking about that we mentioned about restricted?
Right. On
Where is
that,
it listed in here?
it's actually a part of the general fund right now, but I am going to make a line item for that restricted $600,000 so that it can be allocated for its interest.
Okay. All right, looking at the opiate funds restricted, we haven't had any disbursements out of there yet? We
You know,
voted on two
this
times.
was as of October, so yes, I asked them to show, I think they may have paid that out of general fund, because I asked them where was that, and as of October, again, if they paid it out of there, then they need to JE it back to this fund.
Okay, because one vote was
18,000 for the
2024.
Narcan
And-
can, and then for the
This would
training.
pass some.
Right.
Okay. Wrote something here. but- And the last page, and you may have already answered it, but the page with the ARPA funds.
Mm-hmm.
So I noticed you had $947,862 dollars. You spend 9,000. What did you spend?
That was an IT expense way back when we first started the ARPA fund. I'd have to go back and look, but that was done probably 3-4 years ago.
Okay, so when you look at, if you subtract the interest, which is the earned interest is 895,000 plus, and what's left, that's 52,000, if I did my math right, 52,803. What happens to the unallocated funds? I mean,
Well, all of the unallocated funds right now are just sitting there waiting for you all to make a decision on how you want to allocate. Or
so,
me to make a recommendation on how to allocate.
so we didn't have to meet the deadline to have all funds allocated by December 31st?
Well, what was done was all of the funds were put through the general fund as revenue recovery so that they could clear the threshold of being allocated or expended or contracted. So all of the funds were put through the general fund. Every fund that was shown as ARPA funds received were put through the general fund as revenue recovery. So that difference was part of that. So it went through kind of a filtering so that it would not be unallocated. But in a sense, it wasn't allocated directly. It was just revenue recovery.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions or comments?
I just got, one quick thing. I think this, report is a great step in the right direction. Especially, appreciate seeing the Georgia Fund One allocations for all those individual categories. I know the mayor has been super interested in seeing Prime South work through Georgia Fund One, so thank you for that. I don't really have any other detailed questions. I just look forward to getting continued updates and look forward to moving forward.
Commissioner Harris, any additional questions or comments?
Just one comment, and Commissioner Atkinson Williams hit on this with the Roosevelt Lawrence Center. I know I had been asking from way back regarding that budget and how it was being reflected to make sure that that was properly audited, because some of the ways those losses were showing in their budget, I just couldn't see that then, and I don't see it now. But to make sure that all expenses are being properly allocated and accounted for. So just to make sure that that budget is properly audited.
Thank you. And I am going to, as soon as we can, look at all of our utilities, because that water bill, to make sure, because the way that they are allocating the utilities, one, to make sure that they are allocated properly, but we really need to look at it to make sure that the billing is properly done too for all of the facilities that are billed. And I do want to do a deep dive into our utilities, particularly the Georgia Power and the water.
Okay.
Because like the mayor was asking on the 85,000 lighting and adding, right now, we pay $600,000 for all of the lights across the city. So I would like to make sure that we are, paying for lights that are out there, one, and making sure all our billing is correct. But then, adding some, hopefully we can have some savings so that those additions won't be a net increase in our cost.
All right, thank you.
One last question about the homelessness prevention. Because I remember we did that when Commissioner Kaysen and Commissioner Martin was on. I know that you all had required Ms. Hamilton to send over, I guess, documentation, but
Mhm.
$126,000 is a lot of money to go ahead and say, because then
She had sent over a request. They have spent 156,000. She sent over a request for a payment of 70,000, which is not reflected in this, but it will be reflected.
okay, so she's been, and I only say that because, I mean, it's homelessness prevention. People are still getting evicted. People are still getting their lights turned off, their water, and that, within the city, because they call me, right? And in my mind, I'm like, well, sometimes they call community actions and then they don't have the funds because they don't. But these are people that live within the city limits who can utilize the funds that we allocated back in 2022.
Yeah, and they are still allocating. As of the last bill I saw was they had expended 156,000, so a little bit more than what's showing it. And we are going to give them $70,000 of additional funds that they requested.
Okay, just was double checking because, like I said, it's been there for almost 3 years. And, all right,
Yeah.
thank
Maybe we
you.
could ask Ms. Hamilton too to come and give us.
Right, that would be,
presentation, a little report
Yeah.
on how this.
I will do that.
That'd be good.
Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll open it for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the financial report as of October 31st, 2025, as presented.
Hearing a first, do I hear a second? I'll second. All those in favor, show by the usual sign of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
I oppose.
There's 2 opposed. That is interesting because Commissioner Harris?
Mr. Mayor, I really thought that we were doing this as a,
Oh, is this just informational?
I beg your pardon?
Mm-mm. It's
Yeah,
on there for approval.
approval, yeah.
oh, it's on there for
Come to the
approval.
approval
Yeah.
section.
Okay.
And I know Attorney Corey, you always like for us to, so my reason for not approving it is because this is one of the things when I spoke about us going into March without having a city retreat yet, with this being the first time that a finance report has been presented in months, it's still a lot of missing information and we kind of just, we had to breeze through it because we're in a commission meeting. So that's my reason for not approving. It's just information that, a lot of questions were asked and it was a lot of stuff to say, well, I'll put it on there next time and it wasn't there. So that's why I can't approve it just because of that.
Attorney Corey, I echo the fact that it's been months, and this is the first time, even though we saw a format, but it wasn't exactly our information. They were saying that it was just a format presented to us, I think back in September, sometime October, as how our report would look like. But these are the only first time we've seen some numbers. We just got this document today.
And I apologize for that. And really, it has been a very tedious process and there's a lot more of information to be caught up. That's why we're only up to October. But I will go through and scrub it and make sure I send out comments for everything that you all ask.
Thank you.
I think in the legal sense, there's been a motion. It has been seconded. The vote is a tie.
It's not a tie
Okay.
because I can't vote. And I tend to agree with Commissioner Rowe and Commissioner Atkinson Williams. I really thought it was kind of being presented to us for us to review how it would now be presented to us, not just from the presentation CKH did telling us that they were working on the format and stuff. So for me, I feel the same way. I'm happy to see us at this point. But I would like us to be a little more definitive in what we're presenting, and all of the information being represented on the actual forms. So I do agree with Commissioner Rowe and Commissioner Atkinson Williams.
With that, the motion fails. We will open it for another motion.
I think if it fails, if I could interject, Mr. Mayor, there's not a negative ramification for the denial or rejection of the financial report. I think what the outcome would be is that it would be brought back again, and with whatever formatting and informational issues were identified in tonight's discussion, and you could try to get it back. And if it is in the format that is what the commission wants, then it can be voted to be approved at the next time that it's presented.
I guess this is just me. It's on here for approval.
I see that.
And so if it is on here for approval, then that means there must be a motion to move it to some other state. So I don't mind whoever makes the motion in whatever state they want to move it to. But some motion must be made, it must be seconded, it must be a majority of the vote. So with that, I will open it for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we are, that the financial report as of October the 31st, 2025 be represented to us with completed information that reflects accurate that's too long, but that reflects accurate information that as of October the 31st, 2025. At a later date to be determined by the finance department or the city manager, or to be determined by the city manager.
Hearing the first, do I hear a second?
Second.
Hearing the first and the second. All those in favor show by the sign of aye. Aye. All those opposed.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1. With that, we will move on to an update. K1 Blue Light Tower Project. Mr. Alec Eaton.
Good evening, Commissioner, Mr. Mayor. Nice to be up here again. Thank you for allowing me time for this update. In our mission to become the safest city in Georgia, I'd like to present that we have recently received a $10,000 grant from Norfolk Southern in support of getting a K1 Blue Light Emergency Warning and Call Tower. Our goal, we will be installing this in Mockin Square by the end of the month. Site is already being fitted for power usage and base for the tower to go in. And in this tower, we have identified the need for public safety enhancement, emergency communications, visible security presence in high traffic public areas, including all of our downtown waterfront parks and sites already predetermined. This one being our first location as a proof of concept and supported by not just with the city, but also local businesses and the College of Georgia to install these towers. We have received a lot of positive feedback in having this new initiative. We will be, let's see, our goal is, and this is our first initial one, phase one is consistent of 4 different locations as we are seeking more funding through grants, through the T-Mobile City grants, and a phase 2 that will be supported by a GMA warning system grant. And these towers are unique in a sense where we have a 24-hour camera system on top, followed by an emergency speaker that can be able to be pushed out communications through either speak to text or a direct communication for any weather alerts, active shooter situations, or anything in the public notice within a 500-foot radius. Think of like tornado warnings or anything of that nature. Then it has a push button camera that every time it is activated, it highlights that individual, especially at nighttime, showing who's activated that system to enhance the security as they're directly talking to 911 services for their needs. And it illuminates the entire square with a blue light to give better presence and safety awareness in these poorly lit areas. So it goes around in a 360 kind of fashion, increasing the safety of those measures and providing a sense of security and safety for our citizens. With that, Happy to answer any questions that you might have of this project.
I want to start by saying thank you so much for all the work that you did for this grant. And I am an advocate for the entire city of Brunswick, but I'm a stronger advocate for my district, right? So none of these are in the North Ward. We have Goodyear Park, we have Palmetto Park, and then we have soon to be Coach Othello Speakman Park. So just putting it out there, like I said, I love the city. There's so much focus on downtown and Old Town, but it's none in the north part of the city. So I just wanted to just say that, but thank you
Yes,
so
ma'am.
much.
Yes, ma'am. And to that, with our 12 locations for phase two,
Okay.
we will be expanding that area into those different wards
Okay.
and those
And
park areas.
just saying too, because I get what you're saying, you phase two, but we're always like in the after.
Mhm.
That's all. We're always in the after and not the first. That's all I have to say.
Yes,
But thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, remember now, this is only downtown. This isn't the entire South End.
I got a question on what's the height of these?
With the camera at the top, it'll be about 12 feet tall.
Okay. And is the blue light like constantly on or only on when it's activated?
Only when it's activated during night times.
Okay, so it's not like solid blue light all the time.
No, sir.
Good. And the camera's only activated when it's pressed or whatever?
This will be a 24-hour access camera. So with this one, you could be able to tap into that if there's an emergency when it is activated. You'd be able to see live stream with it.
So who can pull up the live stream? How's that connected? Kind of some of the similar questions we had.
Yep.
earlier.
This one ties directly into the police system as well. So it integrates into the established camera system that we would have
Okay.
to be able to be controlled access, encrypted, and only accessed by the approved individuals like law enforcement and 911.
Okay. Okay. And then I saw that this one's gonna go in Market Square. Give me an idea. I didn't see a map or where like at the square you're talking about locating it.
Yes, if you are looking at Mockin Square West, it is going to be in the back right corner, butted up about 6 inches from the brick for ADA compliance. It would be kind of back out of the way, closer to the power source on the back side of the inner square. So that way, that area has a little bit less visibility of light time at nighttime. So it'd be able to create a safer environment right there.
Cool. Well, obviously, I'm for security and safety, and just some of those questions are geared towards also thinking, about the use of our squares and public access and making sure that, we're doing safety measures, but we also want to make sure that we don't do something, i.e. put a pole in the middle of somewhere that traditionally are used for activities. So thank you for your thoughtfulness.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Steve.
Very welcome.
Thank you, Alec.
You're welcome. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you so much. With that, we move on to city attorney's items. Consider approval of American Cruise Lines agreement.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. What you should have before you is the latest version of the American Cruise Line docking agreement for the cruise ship docking at Mary Ross Park. I did want to take a second to recognize Jake Maturo with American Cruise Line is attending the meeting tonight virtually. If there are any specific questions related to maybe some more ACL-centric information, I hope he will endeavor to answer those. But essentially, I think you all are somewhat aware that we've been in negotiations with ACL for approximately 1.5 years to try to get a final contract approved for the priority docking agreement at Mary Ross Park. There are some, Commissioner Harris called me earlier today, and as a result of that conversation and reviewing the document again, there were some additional changes. I've already run those through with Jake, the red lines, but I'm going to try to share my screen to show where those red lines come into play. So give me one moment. Okay. I'll go through, let me briefly go through sort of the highlights of the agreement. This is a docking agreement. I think everybody has seen or is familiar with the cruise ships that come into the city of Brunswick and dock. ACL, because of the unique nature of Mary Ross Park and the dock that we have down there being cement pilings and the somewhat structurally sound or very structurally sound, ACL is actually able to attach to Mary Ross dock, which is different than some of the other ports that it visits. And I think that drew in interest from ACL to enter into an agreement whereby they are paying or willing to pay the city. It would be a $10,000 a month payment to the city of Brunswick for that priority docking. They also, as contemplated in this agreement, are looking to put approximately $1 million in an investment to improve portions of the dock, Mary Ross dock, to help their ships have easier in and out access, easier docking access to the Mary Ross dock. As a part of that investment and the money that they would be paying to the city on a monthly basis, they are requesting a proprietary agreement, which is what you have before you, that would allow for a 10-year non-exclusive license to dock at Mary Ross Park. There is a priority that comes with that since there is consideration being provided by the cruise ship, but it is non-exclusive, so we will still have utilization of our dock. The city still maintains control over the dock portions that would not be occupied by the cruise ship. There are automatic renewals, but there is a new component, and that's one of the red lines that I'll go over later, that we do have the ability at the end of the initial term to, at that time, give notice prior to a automatic 5-year term being extended. If we do not give notice, then it would be extended additional 5-year terms. I also added in, so there is a CPI clause in here where if there are increases in the consumer price index, that the city would be entitled to an additional amount of rent. After talking with Commissioner Harris today, I added in a clause that regardless, because there could be a decrease in the CPI as well, that it will never fall below the $10,000 base rent that is set forth in the agreement. In addition to, and I know there's been conversations, I've had conversations with Commissioner Saby about this. We do include clauses now for all utility costs incurred through the use of ACL's boats at our dock, which would include all the basic utilities you would understand, trash, water, the electricity. Those are all incorporated in and would be the responsibility of ACL to pay for those. If there is damage cost to Mary Ross Park dock by ACL's use, they would be responsible for the cost of those repairs. There's an indemnity clause in there, and we do have an insurance requirement for ACL, which they will be providing insurance for the times during which they're using our dock. Otherwise, the agreement, I think you've probably seen it in past iterations. There are not huge changes from how we've negotiated through. It's been very small changes, but that are important changes. So if there are any other specific questions related to the actual terms and language of the agreement, I'm happy to answer them tonight.
Questions or comments?
Attorney Corey?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, so this nice document you gave us does not include the red line? Or? does
Right.
it-
These are literally, these red lines were created today as a result.
Printed these.
Correct.
Okay, that's what I'll make sure. And I may be confused or don't, I thought we were dealing with some other contract, this contract plus another contract with ACL about the repairs of the dock. And that went back, but
That was separate. That was approved last year.
it was approved last year
Yes.
to move forward, that the changes that we talked about.
That was a separate agreement related to, there was some damage to the dock as a result of ACL's usage. And that was, we went through with Garrow, did a separate agreement entirely. I can't remember the exact numbers, a couple $100,000 worth of repairs.
Okay.
That was brought to the commission and approved sometime last year.
Okay. And you probably just said this is a yearly contract, am I correct? It starts and begins and ends with
No, it's a 10-year.
10-year?
Yes, and it would begin when the city commission when and if the city commission approves it. And I did want to add, there is one other change that would be shown on the screen. If you look at what would be page 2, this is related to the improvements, the investment that ACL would be making in the dock. It's subparagraph 3. Because we do not have the schematics, and we do not have the full plans of what those improvements would be, there's a clause in there that requires that the improvements are subject to city's approval. So it would have to come to us, and there'd likely be separate agreements related to those improvements as to how they're completed. ACL will be designing and funding with the city in correlation with the city's engineering department. And again, the representative from ACL, Jake Maturo, is online if you'll have any questions for him.
Additional questions or comments?
Brian, thank you for handling those concerns I had expeditiously. And you addressed the schematics. And it's only reasonable because we would require no less of anyone else that we're going to be building or making improvements to anything city. And so for me, I wanted to be able to see those schematics to see how it's going to look and to just assure that these improvements were not just going to be specific to ACL, because ACL will not be the only cruise line that will be using those facilities, and just to make sure that the improvements would be beneficial or would service the entirety. So I appreciate you having that discussion and attending to those necessary amendments.
And I was able to get the red lines over to Jake with ACL, and he has already had been able to run those through and said they are acceptable or agreeable. So
Thank you.
I have a couple questions, Attorney Corey. Want to make sure that we're clear. So the $10,000 a month is just what did we have I know we had gone back and forth between a dimension on that dock or the length. Is there did we decide on that? Because I guess my question is it 10,000 per boat? Is it 2 boats? And I know we have kind of gone back and forth on that a little bit.
Sorry, Jake we have developed an exhibit, and I apologize for that. That should have been included. I did not include it. I will open it now and show, again, share my screen to show. Sorry. Well. Nope, wrong one. So that the area in red
You
would
might
be,
just zoom in just a hair.
yep.
You do mind or you will do?
I do not mind.
Okay, perfect. So basically half of the
Yes.
roughly estimate. Okay, so this,
And
I think that, the clear intent is that obviously ACH is a great partner. We want to keep them coming here. But we also want to make sure that we don't limit ourselves with 4 cruise ship boats and not give access to potentially another.
yes. And I should say this too, because DDA is obviously, and Matthew Hill, they obviously are and have been historically the contact point for Mary Ross Park and for the dock. So as we've gone through the iterations of this contract, I've kept Matthew involved as well to make sure, some of the language in here and some of what ACL's needs will be are not going to, interfere with the other boats that do come down and use like O-Search or those types of vessels. And I think that based on, Matthew and my conversations with Jake at ACL, that everybody's always played nice in the sand at that dock, and the cruise ships take into consideration if Matthew has, or if the city has interest in in a boat docking further down, that everybody is able to coordinate appropriately.
Yeah, again, I'll read it. I know, as you know, we've been working on this for quite a while. I know American Cruise Lines is excited about getting this in writing. I will say that I also like to commend ACL, excuse me. Over the last couple of years, I've personally noticed a big difference in their involvement in getting their customers active in downtown and supporting local businesses. And so I do know that there's at least 3 businesses in downtown that are on their excursion list. So I recognize that and appreciate that and look forward to a continued partnership and look forward to seeing what their improvements are to the facilities so we can make it better for our whole community, not just the people that are visiting on the cruise line. So thank you for all your hard work on this.
Any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll open it for a motion.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we authorize you to execute this agreement with American Cruise Lines for docking at Mayor Ross Park.
Having a first, do I hear a second?
Second.
Hearing a first and a second. All those in favor, show by the usual sign of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. Anything for executive session?
I do not have anything.
Having nothing, we'll open it for a motion. Hearing a first, do I hear a second?
Second.
Hearing a first and a second. All those in favor, show by the sign of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, we are adjourned.
Good night.